Hey there guys, and welcome to the first edition of the Your Progress is Our Passion podcast with me, Dave Cottrell. I'm not going to spend too much time talking about myself on this podcast. I'm going to get straight into basically the details, because what this podcast is about is helping you with progress. The thing that you need to know about me at this point is that I was obsessed, and I'm happy to use the word obsessed, growing up with progress in all sorts of ways, whether that was through learning an instrument or learning a new language. I became obsessed with learning, and the processes are actually almost the process of learning itself. And as I've progressed through my career, in my 20s and then going into my 30s, it's become more and more apparent that I want to help other people make progress in any area of their life. I do that now through personal training and also through mindset coaching. The podcast itself, and particularly this first episode, I want to talk about what progress looks like. Now, we probably have an idea of what we expect progress to look like in any particular field, and that can probably be based oftentimes on what we see other people doing and what we see other people achieving. So if we see someone doing well with a business, we think that is what progress looks like. If we see someone do an amazing body transformation, we think that is what progress looks like. And we get fed very, very narrow views on what progress in any one area might look like. The problem with this is that if we try a similar journey, then when we don't get the progress that looks exactly like this particular viewpoint, then we can often see ourselves as having failed. And I think that's a very disempowering thing to have. If we see, you've probably heard the expression, don't compare your chapter 1 to someone else's chapter 12. Well, I'd like to go one step further and say, don't compare your chapter 1 to someone else's chapter 1. Progress, the journey, the whole thing looks very, very different for everyone as an individual. I mean, even with this podcast, the first time I actually recorded the first episode was back in May of this year, and I'm re-recording it now in September. And the reason for this being is that I had a very clear picture in my mind of what I wanted the show to look like, what I wanted the format to be. There was going to be a solo show with me and then an interview. That's still happening, but I had an outline of how I wanted the solo shows to look, and I had an outline of how I wanted each of the interviews to look. As I started getting into the interviews, it became clear that view of how I actually wanted things from the offset probably wasn't the best way to do things, and it gave me a lot of limitations. It made the interviews, it held me back in actually openly expressing things in the interviews and going off the rails and finding out the deeper meaning with stuff. So as I learned through that process, I decided to change it. And for the solo shows, I've come back, revisited that, and now I want to talk about things in a different way. And that was from me looking at kind of how other people had done their podcasts and thinking, okay, I want to follow in those footsteps, or I want this format. And for me, it's progress or the success of that particular podcast looking a specific way, that when I actually got it to look that way, it didn't feel how I wanted it to feel. So I had to adapt. One of my favourite sayings is that the journey evolves and we have to evolve with it. And that's why I've come back to the very first episode again, revisiting this. So when I actually do release the podcast, it's going to be much more in a format that I feel happy to actually put out there in the world. And this is kind of something I want to impress on you guys, is that if you've got an idea, a vision, a goal, a journey ahead of you of how you want to do something, and maybe you look at how someone else has done it and you think, oh, that just doesn't fit for me, or I could never do what that person does, then that doesn't exclude you from actually being able to do the things that you want to do. Yes, it might exclude you from doing it in exactly the same way as another person, but progress, success, going forward with any journey can look many different ways to many different people. So, if you see someone out there with a fitness transformation and they've got these rippling abs, and you think that's what progress looks like, and because you haven't got those rippling abs, you think you're not actually making progress, yet maybe where you are in terms of what you're lifting or your ability in sports or just your general health has come on a hell of a lot, and you're almost pushing that progress to one side because it doesn't line up with what this other person has. So The first thing I would suggest is to kind of clear the decks of what other people's progress looks like. And then from there, start with getting a very, very, very clear picture of what you want yours to look like. Not just what will I look like, how will I feel, where will I be, who will be the people around me, what other things will what I'm trying to achieve give to me, and get a really, really clear picture of it. Now, this isn't talking about doing things like The Secret where you just sit there and will it and it comes to you. But I do believe that we need to start with a vision. We need to start knowing where we're going towards, because nobody gets great degrees of success by accident. You know, there are things that do happen by accident, but to get great progress, great success, we need to have a clear vision of where we are headed, because you don't just stumble across it. It doesn't just happen by accident. We need to know what that is and know where we are now, because that will then teach us what we need to do to basically work backwards from the future vision to the actions that we need to take to get there. If your future involves you lifting a certain amount of weight, then the actions would be that you would lift incremental amounts of weight in the build up towards that. You wouldn't just go, okay, I'm going to go into the gym and I don't quite know what I want to achieve, so I'll just do 3 sets of this, 4 sets of that, with no clear vision on where it wants to go. And the same is with progress in any other area, really. If you're trying to progress with a business, have an idea of what your client base looks like with that business, what your infrastructure looks like with that business, who are the people that you are working with, you know, what is your target audience? Not just, okay, say you've got a business selling some crafts or something along those lines. It's not just, okay, I'm going to make these crafts, then I'm going to sell them. That's not a clear enough vision. You know, who do you want to be selling them to? Where do you want to be selling them? You know, all those things taken into consideration, and get this really clear vision of what your progress, you want that progress to look like, where you want to be, where you want to go, what you want to do. With this show, I'm hoping to help you guys get there. I've got some amazing guests already filmed. I've got the first 10 of us, and 10 of the guest shows already filmed. We've got some great guests. Next week, we've got Ben Coomber, who's one of the biggest reasons for me actually getting into podcasting, one of the biggest reasons for me getting into fitness in the first place, to be perfectly honest. And with each of these guests, the idea is to kind of break down how they make progress either in their fitness or with their business, in their personal lives, in their relationships, with their health. All of these things, breaking down what they constitute as progress, what their best tips are in those areas. Because this is what I'm saying is that you're going to, over time, build up a picture of and a process on how you're going to get to where your goals are. And though no one else's journey will look exactly like yours, they will share pieces, and you can use the pieces from these other individuals, hopefully from myself as well, and the things that have worked for me or for others. Start taking those pieces and put them together to build your own progress and to build your success. So I'm going to leave it there for this one. Nice short one for the opening one. Next week we've got Ben Coomber on the show. Really looking forward to kind of getting that out there. He says some really great stuff on that interview. And then the week after that, we've got a special, which is just one of the kind of more creative pieces that I've written, called You Are Enough. We've got the audio from that lined up for the 3rd week, and then back to another interview for week 4. If you've enjoyed the show, please give it a like, please give it a share, review on iTunes, all those things, because I want to help this grow. It's a baby right now. I want to help this grow, and I need you guys to do that. I'm going to keep giving you guys as best advice I can each week, getting the best guests I can get hold of, and hopefully be part of your progress. So thanks again for joining me, and I'll see you soon. Bye.